It's been 100 years since the first recorded attack from a mountain lion in North America. During this time, there have been 126 reported incidents, out of which 27 were fatal. Even though these attacks are rare, they are still terrifying. The mere thought of having a predator's jaws clamped on the back of your neck while you scream in terror is enough to make even the most experienced outdoorsman shudder. Unfortunately, mountain lions don't usually announce their presence, so victims often don't see them coming until it's too late. Hello, and welcome to Amazing Animal Stories. Today, we will tell you the story of Mark Reynolds, who was mauled by a mountain lion while he was fixing his bike. However, before we begin, we would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe to our channel and also press the bell icon. Let's get started. In Orange County, California, mountain lions can be found stalking from the Santa Ana mountain ranges and foothills to the canyons and summits. These majestic creatures are crucial to maintaining the balance of the ecosystem by controlling the deer population as keystone species. Despite giving birth to several kittens each spring, the mountain lion population in the area is not increasing. The reasons for this are vehicle collisions, habitat loss, and rodenticides. Additionally, the Santa Ana mountain lions cannot mate with other mountain lions from different areas because they are landlocked. While these big cats are terrifying, they are pretty shy and prefer to keep their distance from humans. They are not known to hunt or stalk people deliberately, and there are no documented cases of them doing so. So, then how do we explain mountain lion attacks? According to some experts, mountain lion attacks occur when humans accidentally provoke them. For instance, if someone gets too close to a lion's kitten or recent kill, the big cat may react defensively. After all, these creatures don't eat very often, so a fresh kill may be their first meal in a while. However, there are unusual cases where attacks occur for no apparent reason, such as the incident involving Mark Reynolds in Angeli. On a seemingly ordinary day on January 8, 2004, Mark Reynolds, a 35-year-old competitive cyclist who loved the outdoors, decided to explore the desert hills of Whiting Wilderness Park alone without any weapons. Mark worked for a sports marketing company and was an experienced athlete who enjoyed racing bicycles and motocross through rough terrain. While he usually cycled through the park's trails with his friends, he ventured into the unpredictable hills alone this time. Sadly, Mark's decision to venture alone into the desert hills of Whiting Wilderness Park would prove to be a serious mistake. The park's trail system is extensive, with twists and turns stretching for miles, and getting lost can be a real danger, not to mention the lurking predators in the area. As Mark rode his bike along the trail, little did he know something sinister was brewing. About half an hour into his ride, Mark approached the small climb and pedaled hard to reach the top. Suddenly, disaster struck as the chain broke and hung from the front sprocket. Mark peered down and saw two halves of the chain dangling from his bike. The stress of the ride had finally taken its toll. After parking his bike beside a nearby bush, Mark crouched over the broken chain, trying to come up with a solution. Suddenly, a mountain lion leaped out from the brush and pounced on Mark, knocking him to the ground. Mark tried to fight back valiantly, but the predator's instincts, honed over millions of years of evolution, had taught it to target its prey's vulnerable spots. The mountain lion sank its claws into Mark's shoulders and viciously bit him on the neck and face, ultimately suffocating and cutting off his blood supply. Despite his agonizing screams for help, no one was around to hear him. Tragically, Mark was all alone, and there was little he could do to fend off the fearsome feline. The mountain lion had claimed its prey in moments, dragging Mark's lifeless body into the nearby bushes. Anne and her friend Debbie were gearing up for mountain biking at Whiting Wilderness Park, one of their favorite spots for outdoor adventures. Anne's passion for the outdoors began when she joined the Marine Corps at 19, working as a helicopter hydraulics mechanic. Being a tough and hardy woman, it was no surprise that her favorite sport was mountain biking, which demanded a lot of endurance and resilience. Cactus Hill was a narrow trail filled with twists and turns that Anne and Debbie loved to ride on. One day in January, after work, the two women arrived at the park, ready for a quick 45-minute ride. But what started as an uneventful day turned into a terrifying encounter for them. As they rode down the trail, Anne, who was leading, came across another rider parked along the narrow path. She stopped to ask if he needed help, but the man pointed to a seemingly abandoned bike and told her the owner, Mark, was nowhere to be found. Anne didn't think much of it and continued on the trail. Little did she know, the abandoned bike was a sign of something terrible. Anne rode up a slight rise and prepared for the trail's final descent when something ominous loomed ahead. As Anne rode down the trail, she suddenly noticed movement out of the corner of her eye. At first, she thought it was just a deer, but before she could finish her thought, she felt the brutal force of a 110-pound mountain lion pouncing on her at the speed of 35 miles per hour. The feline's sharp claws and teeth dug deep into her shoulders, and Anne couldn't help but let out a blood-curdling scream. In the grip of the powerful animal, Anne cried out to Jesus for help, but the mountain lion didn't seem to care. It dragged her a few feet, readjusted its grip, and then clamped down on the side of her face, tearing off her ear from her skull. The creature's strength was overwhelming despite Anne's attempts to fight back by punching the lion's face over her shoulder. It continued to bite and readjust its grip, breaking Anne's nose and peeling away her cheek. As Anne's scream echoed through the trail, her friend Debbie, who had just arrived, heard her cries for help and rushed toward her without knowing what awaited her. When she reached Anne, she was horrified by the gruesome scene in front of her. As Debbie approached her friend, she couldn't believe her eyes. Anne laid on the ground, covered in blood, and Debbie was filled with fear and anger at the sight of her friend's near-fatal injuries. Without hesitation, she grabbed her bike and hurled it at the attacking animal with all her might, but unfortunately, it did not affect the beast. Debbie knew she had to act fast as the mountain lion dragged Anne towards a ravine. Desperately, Anne ran to her friend and tried to pull her away from the animal's grasp, but it became futile as the mountain lion's grip tightened around Anne's neck. Just when it seemed like all was lost, a group of mountain bikers appeared and began throwing stones at the animal, finally causing it to release its hold on Anne and flee into the wilderness. Anne was severely injured and struggling to breathe, but still alive. Debbie was there by her side, trying to get her attention as she and the other riders carried Anne closer to the trail. Anne was stunned at her survival, but she could feel the weight of her mangled cheek hanging from her face. It was a brutal and terrifying experience. They were lucky to make it out alive. Within 19 minutes, paramedics rushed to the scene and immediately placed Anne on a stretcher before airlifting her to the hospital. Emergency surgery was required to reconstruct her face and reattach the damaged nerves. It was a miracle that Anne had survived the brutal attack. The doctors later discovered that if the mountain lion had bit her just a few centimeters over, it would have ruptured her carotid artery. As Anne recovered from the hospital, Debbie visited her, and Anne expressed her gratitude for her friend's heroic actions during the attack. After only 8 days, Anne was discharged and returned to living a normal life with her family, but the psychological toll of the disfiguration on her face lingered. However, with the support of her loved ones, she was able to cope. Despite the physical and emotional scars, Anne's husband still saw her as beautiful and couldn't care less about the attack's aftermath. Unfortunately, the same couldn't be said for Mark, who was found dead at the scene of the attack. This tragedy prompted the California Department of Fish and Game to hunt for the rogue mountain lion responsible for the attack. The authorities conducted an autopsy on the mountain lion after it was hunted down. They extracted tissues from Mark's body, including his lungs, skin, and liver, to help understand why the creature attacked him. It was believed that the mountain lion mistook Mark, crouching as he fixed his bike, for a small animal, as they are more likely to attack small prey than humans. After the attack on Anne, it was discovered that the mountain lion had partially hidden Mark's body in a different area for later consumption. Anne had unknowingly ridden close to it. Despite the traumatic experience, Anne became friends with Mark's family and helped raise funds for the Mark J. Reynolds Memorial Fund, a charity that provides bicycles to unprivileged children. Anne underwent 6 more reconstructive surgeries and could return to her life as a trainer. On the other hand, Mark's family sued Orange County for the incident. Still, they later dropped the case after realizing that many cyclists knew the risks of entering mountain lion territory. Mountain lions might not often interact with humans, but we should still be cautious and respectful when entering their territory. These animals are powerful and dangerous, so we must take all the necessary precautions to stay safe. Ignoring these precautions could have disastrous consequences, even leading to a fatal outcome.